Hello, friends. Welcome to a new class on a new topic, that is dark psychology. So, what is dark psychology? I'm sure many of you must not be aware about this topic because it is not something which is traditionally taught in many of the course curriculums of various schools or universities that teach psychology. So, definitely, it must be a new topic for you, at least for some, I'm sure. Even when I was thinking to take up this topic for you in this class today, I thought that this would be pretty useful because this is what we all go through. Um, we see around us, but we do not realize or we do not feel uh, this to be happening with us. Okay, so that is why I thought of choosing this topic, dark psychology. So, what is dark psychology? So, it is basically understanding the darker aspects of human behavior and the potential for manipulation, deception, and exploitation in everyday life. So, let me now just break it down for you in very simple terms. It is, or dark psychology is about the tactics, or let's say the various types of mechanisms or the various type of tricks people use to manipulate others, often without the victim knowing about it or realizing it. So basically, what happens, there is this person who's trying to exert a control, or let's say influence over the other person, but the person who is at the receiving end or the victim here does not realize that he is being tricked or he is being fooled or someone else is trying to take advantage of him or control him, right? So dark psychology is like a study of the human mind and behavior, okay, and its major focus is on manipulation. That is how you are trying to trick somebody to do a certain kind of behavior that you wish that the person should do. You try to control them, you try to use some force on them, need not be physical but also mental. You are trying to be involved in a deceit or where you are trying to cheat them, and also exploitation where you are trying to exploit them. Okay, so dark psychology explores how certain individuals use psychological principles, okay, to influence others for their own selfish, harmful, or unethical purposes. Now, dark psychology, again, you can say there are various key areas of dark psychology, okay. So one is manipulation. Now here what happens, the person who is trying to manipulate the other person, let's say person A wants that person B should act in a certain way. So what would he do? He would use influence tactics to change the other person's thought or actions, and that too for his own personal benefit. Now the person who is changing or who's accepting the control does not want to behave that way, but then he gets tricked in a certain way that he becomes somewhat bound. Okay, so let's say I want you to believe that somebody is not good for you. You have a relationship with a person and I feel that this person is not right for you, but you don't feel that way. You rather are quite fond of that person, but because I want to manipulate you, I would tell you many different stories, many fake things about that person. I would try to keep telling you such things so that your total attitude towards that person changes. Okay. So this is manipulation. Then second is persuasion. What is persuasion? Persuasion is when you are trying to suggest, or when you are trying to make the person understand, or when you are trying to uh, not do it forcefully, but you're trying to make the person believe that what you are saying is right. That is persuasion. And what is coercion, friends? Coercion is when you're using certain kind of pressure, fear, or control, when you are trying to uh, go to the extremes of persuasion. Okay, that is coercion. Then what is deception? Deception is when you are lying, when you are not telling the truth to the person, you're withholding the truth, or when you are gaslighting. We had talked about gaslighting in our relationship counseling class. Or when you are pretending, okay, you do not mean it, but you're just pretending because you want to influence the other person, or you're tricking someone to gain some advantage, okay, that is deception. Then another key area of dark psychology is emotional exploitation. So, what is emotional exploitation? You are trying to play with someone's emotion by uh, arousing guilt, fear, or sometimes love. And all this is done so that you can control the way they behave, they act, the way you have a control over their decision making, etc. Okay, so this is what dark psychology is basically about, and it encompasses the study, okay, of predatory behaviors. Why the word predatory here? What do you mean by the word predatory? Predatory is when somebody tries to hunt, or someone has a motive to take you down. Okay, so it encompasses the study of predatory behaviors, manipulative tactics, and the psychological vulnerability that make individuals susceptible to exploitation. That means somebody is really vulnerable. Somebody is already at a weaker position mentally, emotionally, and the other person knows that this is the right time to hit. And what he does, he tries every trick in his book to bring this person under his control or influence, and it also leads to exploitation. Does not need not be financial exploitation, physical exploitation, but it's at a more deeper level, that is the mental exploitation, when the person succumbs to your wishes, succumbs to your desires. Okay, now how do we know about dark psychology? So what are its historical foundations? So first, you can know about dark psychology from ancient philosophy. So you see, early discussions on manipulation and human modality is there in almost all the old text, ancient text, epics, tales. See, even if you go through our religious text, or even if you go through epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, you would always find characters who are trying to lie, who are trying to control the other person's behavior and mind. Okay, so ancient philosophy, we have always seen these kind of characters who are exploring the nature of power and influence. Then we have a very strong and influential book known as the Machiavelli's The Prince. Okay, so here in that book, you must read that book just to know how someone is able to control and influence others. Okay, so it has a detailed exploration of political manipulation, strategic deception, and the use of fear and cunning strategies, clever strategies to maintain power and control over others. Okay, so you must read this book. If you are not able to read the entire book, at least go through the summary. It will give you roughly a good idea, okay, of this, how dark psychology is used by people to control others. Then next we have uh, Freudian philosophy or Freudian psychology, uh, where Freud's exploration of the unconscious mind, it reveals hidden motivations and psychological vulnerabilities that could be exploited by others. So you see, what do we have in our unconscious? We have our deepest secrets, deepest desires, or those things which are not acceptable to the society. So, what happens when that is in the unconscious and those are not acceptable by the society? Now, somebody can actually trick you to bring that to your consciousness and use it against you. And in that way, they can control you, right? So, that is Freudian psychology. And last is the modern integration. What is the modern integration? So, contemporary dark psychology incorporates findings from newer fields. Okay, so what are these newer fields? Behavioral science, social psychology, neuroscience, criminology, and all of this, all of these fields actually, um, they pave way to understand more of these tactics and techniques and methodology of how people use them for manipulation, control, and influence. Then I have already explained this to you, core concepts of dark psychology. We just finished this. Then come to what is psychological exploitation. Okay. So now psychological exploitation is when you're taking advantage of someone's emotional uh, susceptibility. Okay. Or let's say somebody has some psychological needs, or let's say somebody has a desire or a wish which is more at a mental and emotional level. Okay. And here the form of abuse can be particularly damaging because it will target a person's deepest fears, desires, and emotional wounds. So remember, we talked about Freudian psychology few minutes back. So when a person gets access to these memories or desires or wishes which were almost um, non-existent at the present day because it was unconscious. So once a person gets access to this, now he can use it against the uh, against that subject to actually manipulate or control him or her. Okay. So what could be the common vulnerability? So the common vulnerability target includes low self-esteem, fear of abandonment, need for approval, financial security, and social isolation. Okay. Now what happens, all those people who wants to exploit others, they will try to identify these weakness during initial interactions, and gradually they try to um, get friendly with them, or they try to show that only they know what is better for this person. Okay. And with that they begin their initial manipulation, and slowly they try to control the entire life mechanisms or the entire behavior of the other person. Now because the other person uh, is so much controlled by this perpetrator, so first few days or few months the person will feel good because he does not have to invest any thinking or any planning in his behavior and actions. But over time he has to match up with what he's saying. Okay, he has to, or she has to match up with what the other person wants him or her to do. So this will cause depression, anxiety, loss of self confidence, difficulty trusting others, and long term psychological trauma. Okay, now this long term psychological trauma is something which would need a professional or a trained person to help him, to intervene so that this can be overcome. Okay, so as you see, initially it might seem beneficial to the victim, but over a period of time or in the long run, he or she will understand that I am no more myself. There is somebody who's trying to control me and make me behave the way he or she wants me to behave, not how I want to behave. Okay. Now, let us read about the theoretical foundations. Okay. So, here we actually are trying to read, we are trying to see what are the theoretical foundations of dark psychology. How do we actually, how have we actually reached here? Okay. So, now we'll take three theories here. One is the social influence theory, one is the cognitive dissonance theory, and one is the behavioral conditioning. So, what is social influence theory? See, social influence theory, the core idea is that human behavior is strongly shaped by the presence, let's say, the pressure and expectations of others. Okay, so this is proposed by many social psychologists, and especially you will see many psychologists like Kellman, Ash, Milgram. They have actually worked on this also. So social influence again occurs in three main forms, and what are those three main forms? One is compliance. So what is compliance? Compliance is when you try to change your behavior to gain reward, or let's say to avoid punishment. So you agree with your boss at times, even when you do not want to. But why you do it? Because you are looking forward to something desirable, probably a promotion or an appreciation, etc. So many a times you would see there would be people high up in the power who would talk not very logical things, or who would say jokes which are not funny, but people around them laugh and support them. Why? Because they want to comply, because they are looking for a bigger reward. Okay. Now, in dark psychology, manipulators use these compliance techniques. Okay. So there are many compliance techniques. I'll tell you a few. One is foot in the door. Okay. So what is foot in the door? They will ask for a small favor. Now, if that is done, then they will ask for a bigger one. So let's say I ask for a smaller favor first. So I tell that, okay, can you just spend 5 minutes with me? I really want to, share my feelings. And once the person agrees, now what you do, you slowly and slowly increase it. Can you sit with me for 15 minutes? And you try to emotionally blackmail. If the person is not giving into your demand, you start crying, you start howling. Anything you do for that behavior to be repeated. Okay, so that is foot in the door, where you do first ask for a small favor and then a bigger one. Then next one is the door in the face technique. What is door in the face technique? You ask something huge, and if it's get rejected, you ask for a smaller favor, or you ask for a smaller thing. So let's say you are with somebody in a relationship, and you want, let's say, you want a watch, let's say, which costs 10,000 rupees. That is your actual desire, to get that watch which is of 10,000 rupees. But the your partner feels that 10,000 rupees is a lot. So what would you do? You would make a very you would make a bigger demand. You would tell him or her that I want this watch, probably a watch which is 25 or 30,000. Your partner would definitely say, no, 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 I can't give this. It's too expensive. So what would you do? You would scale down your demand and say, okay, if you can't give me this, then at least you give me the watch which is of 10,000 rupees. Now that 10,000 rupees watch now looks pretty cheaper to the other person. So he agrees. Okay, fine, I'll give it, but I can't spend 25,000. Yeah, but 10,000, okay, I can give. So that is known as the door in the face, where you ask something huge, and when that's get rejected, you ask for something smaller. Then next is fear or authority pressure. So you comply because you have a fear, or you are scared of your boss or of your authority. So this is very common, I think. Sometimes, let's say, you do not want to stay back after office hour and do it. Or let's say your boss has been invited to a party, and then he calls you also that you also come, will go along. You're just not interested, you're extremely tired, and you want to go back home and rest. But because you are afraid to say no to your boss, you agree and you come along, right? So that is known as fear of authority pressure. The next is identification. So identification is again under social influence theory. So here you change your behavior to be accepted, or to show that you belong somewhere. Okay. So let's say people, they copy fashion, they try to copy how other people talk, they try to copy habits of a group. Okay. So now this happens a lot with youngsters these days. And you can see this. There are some youngsters, although they do not like a kind of food, they will still tell they like it, because just to prove that they are unique, they are just not like others. Okay. So let's say there is any food item. Let me give you an example. Let's say sushi. Okay, so sushi is not very common in India, but suppose there's a person who does not like sushi, but the um, whomever he follows, let's say he follows a band who are always shown in reels and in other videos that they enjoy sushi a lot. Now this person wants to belong to that band. He wants to show that I am one with that band. So whether he likes sushi or not, he'll still have sushi. Okay. So that is identification. Then the third point under social influence theory is internalization. What is internalization? You genuinely adopt the belief or behavior because it aligns with your values as well. So how is it related to dark psychology? Now, see, under dark psychology, we are studying about long-term manipulation and manipulation that is over a period of time. Okay. So when the other person, the perpetrator here, is making you believe that you are no good, you must listen to me because you do not have a brain of your own. You do not have a mind of your own. You must do what I am saying because this is for your good. Because you only harm yourself. Because you don't have any capability of your own. You are not good. Without me, you are nothing. Now, if this happens, somewhere the victim internalizes it. Okay. So they start thinking that, yeah, probably what the other person is saying is true, and I must listen to this person. So here it is the deepest level of psychological control, or it is the deepest level of psychological compliance. The person complies because he thinks that yes, what the person is telling me is actually absolutely right. Now, let's come to cognitive dissonance theory. So, as you all know, this was proposed by a person called Leon Festinger. And what was the core idea? The core idea of cognitive dissonance theory is when a person holds two conflicting thoughts, okay, so it creates a mental tension called a dissonance. So, let's say I know smoking is bad, but I'm still smoking, or I still smoke. So, there will be a conflict always, right? So the mind will always try to reduce this tension. How will it do? It will either change beliefs, attitudes, or its behaviors. Okay, the person will change behaviors. Now, um, uh, let's see. um, Suppose a person has this thought that I am a smart person, but he makes mistake very often. So what he will do, how is he going to reduce the dissonance? So he can justify or change beliefs by saying it wasn't my fault, or everyone makes mistakes, or I didn't do it knowingly. So if he holds this view, then you see the conflict reduces. Okay. So in dark psychology, how let's say how is this related? So you see, manipulators exploit this dissonance by creating internal tension, okay, then offering resolution through compliance with their demands or acceptance of their worldview. What does this mean? Once the person has started feeling these conflict inside him or her, what the manipulator will do, the manipulator will try and tell them how big this problem is, and then will offer such resolutions, techniques, or will offer such solutions that the other person or the victim gets bound with the manipulator and always agrees to what he or she says. Okay. So what happens in this way, an emotional abuse begins, and then there are abusive cycles. Okay. So let's say, um, you can just say, mm, suppose your partner hurts you and then apologizes, and then again patches up with you and shows you good behavior. Now your brain now is in a state of dissonance. I love my partner, but my partner hurts me. Should I stay in this relationship or should I not stay? Now your partner comes and says to you that this is very normal in relationships. See, I love you and I think I have a right over you. That is why I hurt you. Now, if you are the victim, you try to understand this point of view because somewhere this is reducing your dissonance. So you try to justify the behavior. Because you justify the behavior, you are trapped in that cycle. Remember the cycle of abuse that we talked in the relationship counseling class? It is exactly that. Now the manipulator makes sure that you are trapped in that cycle, because if you remain trapped, you remain under their control, right? So this is about cognitive dissonance theory. So you would also see when the person manipulator is gaslighting or telling you that what you're thinking is not right, when they are not validating your point. These are all small techniques that do. I mean, they actually follow to manipulate or to control. Okay. Now, what is behavioral conditioning? Behavioral conditioning, as you know, there are two types of behavioral conditioning. One is classical conditioning, one is operant conditioning. So, classical conditioning, I hope all of you know, where we learn by association. So, there is a stimulus and then it is paired with um, um, it is sorry, there's a stimulus and there is a reaction, then it is paired up with another stimulus and then we give a conditioned response. Okay, so that is classical conditioning. So how dark psychology is linked with it? Um, suppose you and your partner had a fight and your partner gives you the silent treatment or he doesn't talk to you. Now what happens whenever you do a mistake or whenever he does a mistake and you both fight, all your partner does is he never cares to explain, he just keeps quiet. So anytime he keeps quiet, you associate that it is you who must have done some mistake. Correct. So this is how conditioning works. Okay, so you basically train your nervous system to respond predictably. Okay. Now, operant conditioning, I hope all of us know, it is learning based on rewards and punishment. So, we had talked about reinforcement, different types of reinforcement, different types of punishment. Now, how is it linked to dark psychology? Uh, let's say intermittent reinforcement schedules. What are intermittent reinforcement schedules? The variable ratio or the variable interval schedules, they create psychological dependence. Okay, and unpredictable reward patterns that maintain control over the victims. So let's say you really like when your partner appreciates you, but he does it in a very unpredictable way. He might appreciate you for something you have done. Let's say you have cooked a meal for him or her and she appreciates you. The next time you do, he says nothing. So what happens? You are in a fix. Did he like it or did he not like it? Did I cook fine or not? So what exactly happens? You are in a position where there is a lot of conflict, or let's say you are not able to understand what happened. So what you do? You wait that the other person will come and clear it out for you, right? So so what happens? You are always at the mercy of the explanation of the other person. So the relationship becomes toxic. So behavioral conditioning becomes the core of toxic relationship manipulation and emotional abuse. Okay, so this was all about theoretical foundations. Now next we come to something very you can say it is one of the core idea of dark psychology. It is known as the dark triad. Triad means three. So, three factors or features of dark psychology. So, dark triad consists of three things, or you can say three factors: narcissism, Machiavellism, and psychopathy. Now, these three traits are independent, but you would see somewhere they overlap. And when the three appear together, the person becomes highly manipulative and dangerous. So, what is narcissism, friends? Narcissism, the core idea is where the person has excessive self love or he loves himself a lot and he always needs admiration and appreciation from others. So, he tries to think in these terms that he's superior to others, he deserves special treatment, and if let's say people do not say what he likes, so he can get very angry, and he does not generally have any empathy, and he has a lot of obsession with success, beauty, power. Okay, And what are the manipulative tactics he uses? So he uses gaslighting, exploiting people emotionally, love bombing, that is showing somebody a lot of love so that they try to control the other person by showing them excessive love. Okay, that is love bombing. Now, why do they do this? I mean, what is the requirement that they have to do this? So, they do this because they can maintain admiration and control, and they exploit people emotionally and use psychological tactics to protect their ego. Okay, so basically the fragile ego. So that is why they do this. Now, next come to Machiavellism. So Machiavellism, the core idea is they want power at any cost. Okay, so this is actually inspired by Machiavelli's philosophy, which talks about cold, ruthless, and strategic manipulation. Okay, so what are the key traits of people, um, you know, who are high in Machiavellism? So they are very calculative and they are very intelligent. They're very skilled at telling lies or cheating others, at deception. uh, they're long term planners. They will not do anything just for short time. They'll plan for long time, okay, long term. And they're emotionally detached, and they will use all these tools like calculated decision making, strategic thinking, only to achieve their goals of control and influence. Okay, so what are the tactics they will use generally? They will always lie to you. They'll try to fake or pretend friendship with you. They will try to play different people against each other. They'll try to create such situation which actually is not there. So all these are the uh, characteristic of people high in Machiavellism. Now they are uh, very knowledgeable. Okay, so that is why they use these psychological knowledge deliberately to control, deceive, and dominate. Now, psychopathy. What is psychopathy? See, they're not very conscientious. They do not think much about others. Okay. So they never feel any guilt, shame, or remorse. They're highly impulsive. They are fearless. They are high in aggression. They take a lot of risk, but they're not able to bond emotionally. Okay. So what do they do basically? How do they manipulate? So they manipulate by exploiting other person's weakness and never feel guilty about it. um, Also they show extreme behavior so that the other person will feel scared and afraid of them, so they'll remain in their control. Okay, so they can be extremely dangerous. Why? Because they will have no emotional break. So you will see some people, they become very possessive, they become very abusive, and they'll always talk about, I can do anything to you because I have a right over you. Okay, so the manipulation is very cold, fearless, and often very harmful as well. Okay, now if you ask me, out of the three, which factor is the most dangerous, it is Machiavellianism. Why? Because these are long term planners. Number one, they are intelligent, so it's very difficult to break away from their bond. Okay, now if you ask how the three traits work together, okay, so when the three traits come together, so person first becomes very attractive or charming, so he shows the signs of narcissism. He becomes very strategic and a good planner, so that is again Machiavellianism. And then psychopathy is fearless, so he does not have any remorse, guilt, fear, anything. So that is why if a person shows all three characters, they become highly effective manipulators. Okay. So because you can say that if such kind of people also exist near you, initially it is very difficult to recognize them. But once you recognize, it also becomes very tough to be free from their clutches. Okay. So why this is always explained in dark psychology is because, as you see, all majority, you will see the most important factor here is lack of empathy. So you'll always stay in a state of dissonance because they would want to control you, so they will initially show empathy, care, and everything. But as they try to gain a lot of control over you, this empathy will trail away. This will go away, and you are always in a dissonance whether to continue this or not to continue, to leave it or wait for the change. Okay, so this is why understanding the triad is important. So I've told you about it, the dark triad. So again, I'm just reading it out. The dark triad consists of three distinct but related personality traits that are strongly associated with manipulative, exploitative, and harmful behaviors towards others. These traits often overlap and can be found in varying combinations within individuals. So psychopathy, I've told you. So they appear charming and intelligent on the surface, making them particularly dangerous as they can easily gain trust and access to potential victims. Now, narcissism, I told you. So they have a very big self-image. They think whatever they're doing is right, and they're special and unique, and they always need admiration. Lack of empathy, as I told you, and they often excel in the positions of power and leadership, where their confidence and self-promotion can be mistaken for competence and vision. Very important line. Okay, so they will make you believe, the way they promote their own self and the way they try to make others believe that they are very confident and they know everything, they are very competent, and they have a good vision ahead. But in actually it is not that. They are just doing this because they have a grandiose self image, they have a bigger self image, and they always want admiration and appreciation. In Machiavellianism, I told you, the person is a strategic manipulator and he knows exactly what he's doing. He has very good planning. He's very intelligent. So because of all these qualities, they thrive in competitive environments. Okay, so such as corporate setting, politics, academia, strategic thinking, and networking, where these qualities are actually valued and rewarded. So let us study, or let us take up a case study on corporate manipulation. So what happens here? So first, in the initial assessment, we see a corporate executive finds key players and their weaknesses, mapping office politics and alliance structures. So initially what happens, the person who's trying to manipulate here, he'll try to identify the key players and he'll try to find out how the office politics is at present. Okay. So then what does he do? He will try the divide and rule policy. Okay. So he will make the make his colleagues and employees of the company fight against each other. There comes an environment of suspicion, mistrust, and people don't trust anyone but only this person. So he will pit employees against each other through selective information. So he's going to tell something to one person and something else to other person, or he'll withhold information from somebody. So he starts to create tensions between them. And then position enhancement. So he uses these chaos and mess that happens and conflict to position themselves as the solution, gaining favor with upper management. So first, what he tries to do, he tries to create. First, he enters. He understands how the politics of the office is. He starts creating tensions among the co-workers. Then he begins to offer solutions. What solutions could there be? So now what happens? He becomes a favorite among his co-workers and the upper management. And then consolidation of power. Because he has now provided a solution, everybody and the company now becomes dependent on him, and they see him as somebody who is a solution to all of their problems. So he creates a problem which never was there, and then he provides a solution to it. Okay, so this is corporate manipulation. One case study we did. Okay. Then we are going to study some manipulation techniques. I've already told them, mentioned them about the techniques to you already. Let us just go through them quickly. So gaslighting, I told you. So gaslighting is what it is. It typically involves persistent denial of facts, minimizing the victim's feelings. Okay, so that is gaslighting. I think we had done this in detail when we were doing relationship counseling. So I'm sure all of you remember it. If not, we'll just take up very small examples. So let's say the other person in gaslighting, he makes you doubt your memories, feelings, and sanity. Okay. So let's say you say uh, that you promised to help me yesterday in my work, and the other person says, no, I never told this. Probably you're imagining this. I never told something like this. So this is gaslighting. Okay. Then love bombing. So what is love bombing? Where the other person overwhelms you with affection, okay, to control you later. So they will give you a lot of attention, praise, constant message initially, but slowly they'll start demanding things or controlling you, right? So intense attention, then idealization, where they'll make the person feel very special, then they'll start controlling you, and then they'll make sure this the victim is dependent on this person. Okay, so the dependency will continue. This is what they'll make sure. Then fear and intimidation tactics, this we have talked about. So first they will try to um, just talk about harming or abusing, and then they'll actually do it and create such an environment that the victim feels scared and is and thinks it's better to be controlled by him than to break away, because by breaking away probably I'm going to do more harm than good for myself. Okay. Then guilt tripping, I think many of you might be knowing. So guilt tripping is what? It is just like an emotional blackmail. Okay. So the person makes the victim so guilty that he or she feels bound to obey. So let's take an example. So suppose the perpetrator wants the manipulator wants the victim um, to buy him something, let's say. Okay, but the victim does not want to buy it. Now the manipulator will say, I have done so much for you in all these years. I have always got for you whatever you wanted. Can't you do this much for me? And here the other person feels um, a lot more responsible, and he feels that if I don't do it, then I'm going to be responsible for the pain that I'm going to cause the manipulator, right? So here what happens? First, the manipulator identifies the vulnerabilities, okay? So he'll target the loyalty, responsibility, and care of the victim. Then he'll create a false responsibility. So what he does, he'll make the victim feel responsible for the manipulator's emotions, well-being, or life circumstance, and then he'll start um, exploiting empathy. He'll use the victim's natural compassion and desire to help as a weapon against their own interest. And last, he will try to maintain a control, or he'll try to ensure compliance through the victim's fear that probably I'll look as selfish or I'll look as uncaring or responsible for any harm or hurt that I have done to the manipulator, etc. Then we come to a very important topic, friends. It is known as social engineering. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this term, but this term is gaining a lot of popularity in the you can say the corporate world these days. Okay, so if you know about this, comment in the comment section how many of you had heard about social engineering before we actually um, did it here. Okay, So social engineering is the art of manipulating people, okay, um, into giving confidential information, access, trust, or actions by exploiting human psychology, not technology. So, since you hear the word engineering, you might feel this has got to do with technology. But it is not about technology, it is about um, how you are giving information because somebody is trying to play with the psychological vulnerability. Okay, so all the cyber fraud crimes, corporate crimes, political crimes, all of that now, the you can say the majority of the issues can be attributed to the social engineering. Okay, so social engineering is mainly used in cybercrime, fraud, scams, identity theft, security breaches, psychological manipulation, etc. So it is just like tricking the human mind instead of hacking a computer. Okay. So what basically it does? So it exploits psychological weakness such as trust, fear, greed, curiosity, urgency, authority, sympathy. Okay. So social engineer will study the victim's emotions and decisions and then use them against them. Okay. So you might have heard the common techniques that are used, which are pretexting. That is, they'll create some false scenario, like saying that your Aadhaar card has gone invalid, or let's say EKYC is required. Okay, so they'll create a false scenario, which actually is not there, but they'll tell the person with so much conviction that the victim will actually believe them. Then phishing. What is phishing? Phishing is fraudulent communications like fake emails or messages that are that you know the messages look as if they have come from bank companies or officials who are in position of power or influence. Okay, then um, baiting. So what is baiting? Baiting is when you are offering something tempting like free gifts, links, discount coupons, etc. So this is done to trap someone. And then there is something known as tailgating. So what is tailgating? It is following authorized personnel into secure area. So they will trick you that okay, whatever we are saying, you do it because this is actually safe and this is in your favor. Okay. So apart from this, they also use scaring tactics that your account will be blocked in 2 hours, or let's say authority exploitation, where they pretend to be police, CEO, government official, etc. You might have heard of something known as digital arrest. So tell me if you have heard about digital arrest in the comment section. And if you know about any recent study where um, you have seen digital arrest being done and how the person has undergone that time and what has happened to him, do mention in the comments. Okay, I'll check it. And then mm, they'll also create a sense of urgency that see, you just have this offer for 2 hours and you must do it, you must act. Okay, you must do something because your card is going to be deactivated in 20 minutes. So this is they'll create an urgency pressure. And then emotional manipulation, very common. They'll call you up and tell you, sir, actually, I just I'm a very poor person. I just need 10 rupees for this, and I'm running a let's say a campaign or something. So can you just donate 10 rupees? And the demand seems so small to you, and you just tell okay, and they'll send you a link, and then you click on the link, and you lose your hard-earned money. Okay, so that is emotional manipulation. Now, social engineering, one case example, let's see. So, in the research phase, what happens? The attacker researches the target company, or let's say the people who are working there, the system and potential vulnerability. How he finds out about them? Through social media and public information. Then he'll start to establish contact with the people. How does he do it? So he will say that I'm an IT support guy and then I've come and I'm going to set everything right before you people lose all your precious information, etc. Then he will and create a fake urgency situation. So he'll create a sense of legitimate authority and time pressure. So he'll make sure that people get scared and comply uh, within a very short time. Okay. And then once he does all of this, he will successfully trick employees into revealing their password, access codes, and other confidential information. Okay. Now, friends, as we come to the end of this class, I want to ask you one question, and you have to give the answer to me in the comment section, and also you have to write few lines about your answer. Okay, like what are the characteristics, what are the traits, what are the traits, characteristics, what are the examples of such traits, what kind of a person is the manipulator, and any example of the tactics they use. Okay, so the question is, which of the following traits is not considered part of the core dark triad of personality? Not considered, friends. Okay, so one is Machiavellianism, second is psychopathy, third is narcissism, fourth is sadism. So I'm sure all of you, if you have followed the class well, you would know the answer to it. So please give me your answers in the comment box. Also, let me know how did you like this class. If there's anything else we can add, or if you want a extended version of this class, do let me know. And if you like this video, do share it and subscribe to this channel, and also press the bell icon, because then you will be notified of every video that comes in the channel. So thank you, friends. It was a new and unique topic, but I love talking to you about it, and I hope even you would have loved it. So do share your views and opinions in the comments. Also write the answers in the comments, and if there's anything else also you want to mention, please reach out to me in the comment section. So thank you, friends. Have a good day. Bye.